News, Lagos.
The Nigerian economy has been a subject of concern for many years, with various administrations struggling to find a sustainable path to growth and development. As the President Tinubu administration settles into office, the question on many minds is, what is the economic blueprint for the country's future? There are already indications that the government's economic decisions are influenced by the recommendations of international financial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. But what can Nigeria learn from the experiences of previous administrations that have followed similar paths? In this special report, AIT's Lanre Babalola examines the President Tinubu's economic policies, its effect on the economy and the Nigerians, as well as explores how other countries have fared with IMF-guided economic reforms.
The economic policies of President Bola Tinubu have been a subject of concerns for many Nigerians. While some believe his policies are a departure from his campaign manifesto, others think they are influenced by the international community, particularly the IMF and World Bank.
I will serve you.
During this campaign, President Tinubu promised to prioritize job creation and economic growth, but the reality is different. Nigerians are experiencing hardship with skyrocketing commodity prices and job losses. The question is, does the Tinubu administration have an economic blueprint, or what is Tinubunomics?
This election, like the other candidates in the 2023 election, had a manifesto, and we read through some of those manifestos. Upon inauguration, the first thing the government did was actually, in my view, to act against the social market model, actually act in the history of the free market model by declaring subsidies gone forever.
Saying that the removal is bad, but what you do before the removal and what you do after the removal or with the removal is what is wrong with this policy.
According to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, inflation has risen from 22.41% in May 2023, when Tinubu assumed leadership of the country, to 33.95% a year later, an increase of 11.54%. Economic experts believe that the policies implemented so far have been inspired by the IMF and the World Bank, which have a track record of causing poverty and hardship in countries that have adopted their reforms.
What I call IMF doctrine. So, for example, they said you got to devalue your currency. They've said you got to remove fuel subsidy. They've said you also have to make your currency, market determined, which is what they tend to always prefer. And then you also have to, losing interest rate and let interest rate sort of rise in line with inflation. These are all, policies that the IMF tend to recommend when your country is trying to go on a mend. And Nigeria has done all of it.
Of course, I will say they are inspired by the world, not by the Western world. By the Western world, through their instruments, through the instrumentality of IMF, World Bank's advices. However, we are supposed to have looked at this thing before implementing, because it doesn't favor us.
Nigeria has experienced similar economic hardship before under the military government of General Ibrahim Babangida with the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP. The SAP led to inflation, unemployment, and social unrest.
I remember that Idika Kalu was shouting against that particular devaluation. But it was devalued and it landed us here now.
Stories of how Nigeria is a giant of Africa, how Nigeria has potential, how all it needs to do is do A, B, C, or D, and then things can change. We've seen different policies over the years. We've seen different brilliant economic blueprints being put forward, whether it's needs or whether it's ERGP or whether it's a better life for all Nigeria. We've seen different things. The common theme here is that none of it has worked.
In the last 50 years, we can count in 3 hands countries that have developed in the world. Real development moved from X to Y, moved from underdevelopment to not development. And they're not anything other than China, Korea, Taiwan, maybe. So that's it, Singapore. So the rest, it has not worked anywhere.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, provides financial assistance to countries in need, often with requirement of implementing economic reforms. While these reforms aim to stabilize economies and promote growth, they sometimes lead to negative short-term impacts or unintended long-term consequences. Some countries that have faced challenges or negative impacts from IMF loans are Greece. The austerity measures required by the IMF during the Eurozone crisis led to significant social and economic hardship, including high unemployment and public protests. In Argentina, multiple IMF programs over the years have been controversial, with economic reforms leading to severe recession, currency devaluation, and social unrest. In Egypt, economic reforms required by the IMF, including subsidy cuts and tax increases, led to a rise in living costs and public discontent. Others are Tunisia, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and Brazil.
African leaders, Nigerian leaders, do not have the sophistication to understand how to manage the World Bank and the IMF. Not to be reckless and damn the good advice from them, but to be smart enough to know which advice to take and to know the context in which this advice can work. What we're seeing with 55,
Japan did that. They make sure that they lock up their doors, revalue their currency, get industry started, and of course by the time they are coming out, they are almost better than the second world country. And of course